So, hello, welcome. My name is Barak Rosenbloom. Welcome to College Essays 102, Write Your College Essay Like a Pro. I want to acknowledge that I'm not sure what's going on, but I have 10 fingers. I have no idea what's happening, and I've not been able to figure it out. So I hope that's not too distracting. I will try not to move too much. What I'm going to do now is I want to, whoops, that is not the slide I wanted to show. What's happening? I have a new system. I apologize. Present slides. Present slides. There we go. Let's get into the right one. Okay. Welcome. This is Write Your College Essay Like a Pro, also called College Essays 102. This is one of the two webinars that I do to give students a really strong, solid foundation in what makes an effective college essay, and to have a pathway in how to write one. What we're going to do, well, first of all, I want to know, just think about it and feel free to pop in or put in the chat, or let's kind of like think about, what are you curious about? What are you worried about? What do you want to learn? Anyone want to share that? If not, and we'll kind of like pop in. Sometimes people like to chat in these and sometimes they don't, but really those are things like bring that into the webinar, and by the end I'll ask again, and hopefully those will have shifted. What we're going to do is do a little bit of review of College Essays 101 really quick. You don't have to have seen that yet. I recommend it. You can watch these in either order, but I'm going to do a quick review of that. Then I'm going to talk about 3 phases of writing an essay, and it's what we call the Write Like a Pro process. I'm going to go through 8 key milestones, read Connor's essay and how he wrote it, and really dig through all of the big picture steps he took, and look at some other students' work as well, maybe look at some other essays, and excuse me. And in the process, you'll see a pathway to write your essays. And then at the end, any Q&A, I'll stick around for as long as people want. So I'm going to do a really big picture. This is a question I get really frequently. People don't necessarily know what a college essay is. There's kind of like a lot of mystery about it. I go more in depth into that in College Essays 101, but I want to do a really quick overview. And everything I talk about in this webinar will work for any kind of college essay. Usually when people are talking about college essays, they're talking about the common application essay, that main personal essay, the personal statement, that's 650 words. There are over 1,100 schools that use the common application, and then and they all read the same essay, that personal essay that we're going to be talking about. Then they'll have supplemental essays, various lengths, and the same general idea and the principles and the approach works for those as well. The other huge common application that works for a lot of different schools is for the University of California. I just read today something like 130,000 people applied to UC Berkeley. They have a different type of essay. They call them personal insight questions. You pick 4 of them out of 8 prompts. They're 350 words each. Very different approach. Again, I talk more in the other webinar about that. And then there are a whole bunch of other schools. Georgetown and MIT have their own applications. If you're in Texas, you can use essentially the common application essay for Apply Texas if you're only applying to those schools. Cal State, those don't have essays. If you're applying to a military academy, totally different world. And then foreign schools. So there's a whole range of schools. Again, what I'm talking about today, you can adapt and use as a framework for any kind of writing. So the first webinar, College Essays 101, is the 7 secrets for a great college essay. And so I'm going to go through the first 6 secrets for now, and we'll go through the rest of them later. Through the 7th secret later. That's a real secret I say for the end. But I want to pause. Do you have any like, what is your thought, Andrew, or anyone? Like, what do you think a college essay is? Do you have any preconceived notions or how you would even go about writing one? And I'm asking Andrew because he was the brave one who popped up on video. And if you don't have anything to say, that's okay. But again, just jump in. But okay. So Cal State, so the navigator. So the secrets are, first of all, you need to have a strong foundation. You need to know three things whenever you're writing if you want to have a really strong foundation. You need to know your audience, your intention, and your role. And your audience for a college essay, we call him Sad Jacob. Sad Jacob is the college admissions officer. And the way I think of it is Sad Jacob, a couple of years ago, was a tour guide. He was a student at the college. And if you've been on a college tour, they're really, really the friendliest people. They just want people to know about their school. They want to invite students to attend, to take it seriously, to apply. And they love people. The challenge is when Sad Jacob is reading your college essay, he may be in the middle of reading up to 2,000 college essays this year. I did the math. It's 1.3 million words or more of college essays. That's every Harry Potter book and the unabridged Moby Dick. 80% of them, according to one study, are useless. So Sad Jacob is kind of burned out, maybe frustrated, working at this crazy pace, and is just like hungry to get to know a student and read an essay that isn't the same old essay or an essay that doesn't tell him anything. So you've got to know your audience. The second thing you need to know when you're writing or communicating is your intention, that thing that you're setting out to accomplish. Now, you may not know how you're going to do it. You may not know if you're going to do it, but essentially you're saying, I want this to happen and I'll act consistently with that and take steps to make that happen. A lot of people think a college essay is an academic paper, kind of like an English paper, a 5-paragraph essay. It's not that. Often people think that it's something to sell yourself or to prove something or to illustrate some successes. It's not that. An effective college essay is an engaging, authentic short story that shows who you are. Pretty much it. Some of the most amazing essays are about things that you'd never imagine. I do jigsaw puzzles. I went camping and forgot my spoon. My favorite for years was a kid who just sat at the Safeway or the supermarket parking lot in the car with his buddies and said stupid stuff. Hung out for a little bit with other friends and got in trouble, got grounded a couple times, and then went back to the parking lot. So not much happens, but you get to know who he is, his thoughtfulness, his maturity, his caring, his understanding of his friends. And that kind of story just really gives Sad Jacob what he needs as he's looking at the rest of your application. Writing it with the perspective of an English student is not going to help. You're not going to get there. So the third thing you need to know is your role. It's like the perspective that you're taking. And your role for a college essay is you're a teenager telling your story to your friends. Like you're sitting around a campfire or sitting in a coffee shop. It's that simple. Again, not something people usually think about. You're just sort of writing is how people go at it. But when you're intentional about it, when you really think about it, you can have a way of getting to that short story a lot more clearly. So those are the first 3 secrets. And we're going to go through these and see how they play out with actual college essays. Secrets 4 through 6, I found every effective college essay has 3 kinds of content. A bunch of years ago, actually, I read hundreds of essays that were very effective, just really wonderful essays that maybe weren't very necessarily sophisticated or elegant or eloquent, but really showed who the student was. I call them meat and potato essays. And then essays that were not effective. Some of them were beautifully written, but they didn't show anything. They didn't say anything about the student. And I was looking for patterns, like what's in all the good ones. And if it's missing something, it's in the one that's not effective. And it's three things. It's stuff that happens. Like literally, I sat in the car and said stuff with my friends. It's in the moment experiences. The in the moment experience, what you're thinking or feeling as the stuff is happening. And then deep thoughts, which is, they don't have to be really deep and philosophical, but it's something that you can really see today that you couldn't see at the time. So those are the first 6 secrets. Know your audience, intention, and role, and have 3 kinds of content. What you're thinking in the, I just totally lost track of that. Stuff that happens, what you're thinking or feeling in the moment, and deep thoughts. And I think what I want to do now is pull up a sample essay so that you really can talk about it, read it. I think of this a little bit as story time. And 50. And so you can see how those play out. And then we'll look at how to actually write a college essay. So I think what I'll do is just read the one that I just mentioned. The one with the kid who sits in the car. So I'm going to share sample essays so you can read along. So as I'm reading this, kind of be aware, like, oh, who is this written for? What's the tone? What's coming through? And what kind of content is there? I'll make this bigger. I didn't like Zach at first. He broke my glasses in the 5th grade, slammed my head into a playhouse door. Little did I know he would become one of my best friends. Unlike most people, I've had the same best friend since elementary school. We would roam the playground and stay away from icky girls. In high school, I moved on to new playgrounds. They weren't necessarily equipped with a jungle gym. The Matthews Thriftway parking lot became our new home. Surprisingly, I'm okay with that. We made sitting in a cramped car fun. The playful banter never seems to stop, and when you say something, you can almost guarantee that someone will try to poke fun at you. Let's do something. What do you want to do? Oh, I don't know. Well, then why'd you ask? Let's go to a movie. No. Okay, well, then you think of something to do. I can't. Let's go to the car wash and roll the windows down. Shut up. I'm serious. After 10th grade, I started out with the wrong people. The girls thought they were the prettiest, and the guys thought they were the toughest. They didn't take school seriously, more focused on partying and fun than their futures. Their carefree attitudes and overall coolness intrigued me. Drifting away from my real friends, I found a place with these new kids. I knew I didn't fit in with them, nor did I want to, but I didn't do anything about it. I wasn't a bad kid, but it didn't matter. I didn't spend time with these people in school, but I hung out with them on the weekends. I became no better than them in the eyes of others. After being grounded for the 3rd time in 6 months, it hit me. It just wasn't worth it. I wanted my friends back. I wanted my parents' trust back. I had lost the freedom teenagers long for, and for what? Although I was nervous, rebuilding the relationships with my real friends wasn't difficult. They knew I was regretful. I never should have left them. They seemed happy I was back, never holding it against me. I didn't think I knew as much about my friends as I do. Zach hides his feelings in an attempt to not seem weak. Jack is somewhat of a hopeless romantic, even though it's not obvious. Stuart needs to be complimented due to his own insecurities. I sometimes take the playful jokes to heart. These aren't flaws. It simply makes my friends and me who we are, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I've laughed, I've cried, I've argued in that parking lot. I learned it's not so much what I do with my free time, but who I spend it with. We plan to spend the night in the parking lot before we all go our separate ways. Kind of like one last hurrah, but by no means is this the end. So as you hear that, think about what kind of, oh, and Christine is here. Hi, Christine. How are you? I think you're from Greece. You're still in Greece. So as you hear that, think about, again, those 6 secrets, the first 6 secrets. The audience, Sad Jacob, was it written for him? Is that something, the way I think about it is, let's go one page earlier. The way I think about it is is this going to seem familiar to him? Is it formulaic? Is this going to be some cliched essay that he's read hundreds of times? And the answer to that was absolutely not. That's got its own voice, its own narrative structure. It's not one of the common ones. Like I went on a mission trip and did a thing and learned a lesson, which is great. You should do that. We love that students do that. But Sad Jacob has read that a lot. It's not, I tried out for the team in the 9th grade or for a part in a play or ran for student government in the 9th or 10th grade. Didn't get it, worked really hard, learned things, and then tried again. Again, do those things. They're fabulous. But they're really familiar to Sad Jacob. Know your intention. Was that an engaging, authentic short story that shows who you are? Most people I've been sharing this for years, I think for about 12 years, and people, it's engaging. You just want to read it from the first line. It's very authentic. It's a short story in the very broadest sense, as in it's not academic writing. It's not legal writing or journalism. And it's showing actually a great deal about who he is. And I could really pick through. There's a lot of things in there that are very subtle, that are very clear. But when I ask people again, what did you see in this? It is amazing what they come up with. They really are able to describe who he is. And know your role. Just a teenager telling your story to friends, like you're sitting at a coffee shop or at a campfire. Now it's well written. He doesn't actually talk like that, but those come through. Secrets 4 through 6, does it have stuff that happens? Absolutely. We sat in the car in the parking lot. I went and hung out with other friends. We said stupid stuff. In the moment experience, that comes through. His emotions are there. I didn't like Zach at first because when he hit me on the head, like in that immediate thing that happened when he was 5 or 6 years old. And deep thoughts, tons of those, like that, really thinking about like, why am I doing this? And what does this mean? And who are my friends? So I think that's a really great example. And at the end of this webinar, I'm going to share with you a whole bunch of sample essays. So you can look at those and see these and really read those and learn for yourself and see how those play out. Anytime you have questions, let me know. Obviously, you can pop in the chat is probably the easiest. So the question that I always have is how do I write that? How do I make that really happen when that's not the kind of writing generally students write in school? It's just not something that is in most the English curriculum in most high schools in the United States and overseas when I work with students around the world. So the trick is to find another approach to writing that builds on top of everything you've learned. So we have what I call the write like a pro process. So professional writers and communicators tend to approach the craft differently. Now, I know that adults watch this, parents and professionals. If you're a writer, if you're in the marketing field, if you do a lot of communicating, this may seem incredibly obvious to you. But having worked with teens for over a dozen years and talked with I don't know how many parents over the years, this is not common knowledge. This is not how people tend to approach writing and communicating. So it starts with building a strong foundation, and it's know your audience, intention, and role, where, what I've already talked about. And that's what you've got to have. You have to be crystal clear. And we just built that for the common application essay. If you're writing a California personal insight question or a supplemental, why do you want to go to the school essay? The audience, intention, and role might change. So being aware of that. The actual work breaks down into 3 broad phases: the thinker, storyteller, and writer phases. And I'm going to go into some depth into these in the milestones, so you have a big picture of the pathway you can go through. The thinker phase is focused purely on ideas and raw content. The storyteller phase, message, strategy, and structure. And the writer phase is where you deal with tone and language. The reason you break these up is it's cognitive. It's how your brain works. Think about how you write. Think about your process. Do you, excuse me, do you start out and say, oh, I sort of have some ideas. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start writing and kind of organize it as I go and make the sentences reasonably well written so that I can go through the last time one more time and just kind of clean it up? Are you more organized and create your thesis and an outline and then a rough draft and then maybe get some feedback and then a final draft and get structured about it? There's lots of different ways people approach this, but the right, like a pro way is don't focus on things unless you need to. So if you're writing raw content and just getting ideas out, it doesn't matter if they're spelled correctly, if they make any sense. It's like you get stuff out of your brain, because every time you start thinking about, gee, how am I going to order this? Or does that sentence sound good? All of a sudden it stops your ability to have more creative or richer or deeper ideas. Same in the storyteller phase. If you're trying to figure out, oh, what do I really want to say? What's my message really, what do I really want to communicate? And you're dealing with and focusing also on grammar, well, then you're not putting as much attention on the message and what you want to say. So leaving the different actions and the activities and the aspects of writing to the right place in the process, overall, you'll get much better, or even much better results, because if you do a little bit better in the thinker phase, get a little bit better ideas, have a little bit more clear message and more well thought out structure and strategy, and then just can focus on that tone and language, doing a little bit better in each will add up to a much better piece of writing. There are milestones for each of these phases. The foundation phase, building a strong foundation, it's knowing what an essay is and how to write one, and knowing your strengths and how they'll be used. I'll share a link with, it's called the VIA assessment. It's a fabulous, fabulous personal strengths assessment, and it will give you a list of 24 strengths. Everyone has the same strengths in a different order. And you can look at those and look at your work and say, gee, how many of my top strengths are coming through? When I work with students one-on-one, I try to have them get most or all of their top 10 strengths. Other students who I don't work with directly, I say 5 of your top 10 strengths. Because those really, with that assessment, it's an amazing way to communicate personality. So knowing that is an incredible resource. Come up with story starters. These are and I'm going to go through what each of these are, 25 to 40 story starters, really, really, really fast. You don't need big, complicated worksheets and documents and activities. Well, I'm going to be sharing a whole bunch of questions that you can use to come up with story starters very quickly. Now, this says 5,000 to 10,000 words of raw content. That may be really intimidating, but when you turn off all of the filters of trying to write well and set a timer and type nonstop for 12 minutes, it is amazing how quickly this will happen. You can also think of it as 12 or 15 12-minute spurts of writing about a story starter, and just get it out, and you'll see just how bad this can be. This is not quality writing necessarily. That's the thinker phase. In the storyteller phase, the first milestone is getting crystal clear about your intentions. What do you want to communicate? Now, a lot of people start by saying, what do I want to communicate? Like, what's my message? And they say, what's my story? Or what story will communicate the message? And I think those are all backwards. I think that's the wrong time to do those things. Because you're 16, you're 17 years old, and you're going to write an essay that shows who you are. Do you really know who you are? Like, how much depth do you have in your self-awareness? I know when I was 16, I was kind of clueless. As an adult, I think I'm a little more aware, but still there's a lot of mystery to that. So if you start reading what you wrote and looking at it as like, gee, who is this person in these stories I just wrote from my life? Absolutely amazing. Then you can start seeing a message. You can start seeing yourself in a way that maybe you've seen yourself and you know that about yourself, but didn't realize is something you could communicate. And sometimes people see things that just kind of blows their mind. Like, wow, I had no idea this is how I think, or this is how I solve problems, or that every time I work in a team or a group, this is how I operate. And then making choices. Which stories do you want to use? Combining them, pulling them together, and making a rough draft that's maybe 2 to 3 times the word limit. Horribly written, doesn't matter. But saying like, boy, if I included this content, that would work. That would help me communicate my message. That's when you go into the storyteller phase or the writer phase. And the first milestone is creating clear intentions for the tone and the reader experience. You know, how do I want my reader to respond? How do I want my essay to sound? Do I want it to shift different places in the middle of the essay? And the final milestone is you have a beautifully written or best written essay you can. It's ready for proofreading. So this is, like I said, this is a really big picture framework. I'm not getting into the nitty gritty on how to do these things. There are a lot of ways to get at these different milestones. I'll share some tools and some resources with you that you can use to get started in all of them. Let me pause this for a moment. So any in chat or video, any questions, any thoughts? I always just want to pause, check in, see if anyone has anything before I move on. And no. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to go through those milestones one by one so you can see what they can look like. So the first one, and I'm not going to talk about the foundation. This is for these 3, the thinker, storyteller, and writer phases of the process is what I'll go through. So starting with the thinker phase, first milestone is 25 to 40 story starters. They don't need to be fancy. They don't need to make sense. It doesn't matter. Again, I'm going to share, you'll get this email tomorrow, a link with a whole bunch of questions, and go through the questions. You can go through them on your own. You can go through them with someone who knows you and start coming up with things you could possibly write about. And you're not going to write about all of them. So if you come up with 45 or 50, like some people do, you're not going to write about most of them. But the idea is to get ideas out of your head on paper. So this is Lucas, car, soccer, family and friend focused, shooting Keen in the forehead. I didn't notice that. Making a difference on the team. Josh biting himself, taking apart toys. Love equals passion divided by intrigue. I'm not sure what that all is. Again, it doesn't matter. Like when I work with students, I don't need to know what these are. And I'll usually ask and kind of, pick through them, but I don't need lots of detail. And at the point of coming up with them, it's just enough for you to know what you're doing, what you're talking about. Like, I don't know what car means. So that's the first milestone. The second milestone in the thinker phase is write a ton of raw content. And I have a very sophisticated activity called write a bunch of crap. Literally, it's set a timer for 12 minutes, pick a story starter, start your fingers typing with my little 10 fingers hands here, and just write as fast as you can. No editing allowed. Doesn't matter if it's all over the place. I'm going to read Luca's first chunk of raw content that he wrote. And I need to take a sip of water because this is kind of hard to do. I have to do it almost in one breath. Red cherry red with black rubberish interior with leather steering wheel, Jeanberg stick, abbed some crank windows that sometimes need a hand to slide them into place. Also, there are SIG windows that make up for the lack of an AC. The heater system is basically not there until I want to get out if the car, it is a hot day out, but then I just have to push the sticks down. Smells like gas and oil, partly because I like the smell and don't want to have the smell of pine trees in my old car. It gives it a traditional value and feel. Holy crap, the paint job is in pristine condition. Nad the engine, wowza. Okay. So when I talk about raw content, when I talk about write a bunch of crap, that's what I mean. This is particularly bad. I will admit it is particularly bad. Some students just by the way they write, it actually is pretty good. Some are, I've worked with some absolutely incomprehensible because they think so fast, their fingers move so fast, and it just gets out there. I barely can tell what it means, but they can, and that's what matters. I'm gonna share so you can see a couple other examples of what it might look like. Oh, these are more story starters. So raw content. I forgot my passport. My trip to Rome was approximately in May last year with my whole class. Was planning it for a very long time. Teacher was called Madame Doyen, and she wanted to make sure this trip was going to go well. She told us all the rules, like not sneaking out at night, obviously. There's another one. These are all different students. The morning started with bright sun and anticipation of pancakes. A small 12-ounce bag of Bisquick and a 4-ounce bag of chocolate chips my cook group and I had carried with us for the last 9 days. Those 9 days consisted of bone-chilling river crossings. So this is someone just talking about a trip and just sort of like different aspects of it and bouncing around a bit. The Golden Compass. Hi, I'm Emma. My mommy named me Emma because that was her grandma's name. Kindergarten had begun and a new question popped up. Lyra's a pretty unusual name, but where on earth did it come from? No, that's not good. What 6-year-old has never asked about the name? But ugh, I can't remember when I first asked. I can't remember exactly when I asked, but it always puzzled me. Very stream of consciousness on this one. And so on and so on. You know, there's all sorts of ways that these can look. So those are the two thinker phase milestones. Let's get back to this. The storyteller phase, you know, at some point it's like, okay, I've got like 12 or 15 or 18 blocks of raw content. I've written about all sorts of different things. Now what am I going to do? Well, in the storyteller phase, the first is come up with your personal intentions. And for Luca, it started with most or all of his top 10 strengths. Remember, I mentioned the VIA strengths assessment. For him, love, humor, creativity, gratitude, curiosity, humility, self-regulation, teamwork, zest, and honesty. So you can maybe, this kind of sounds like personality, and that's what that test is designed to do. It's not, gee, I think I want to show that I'm creative. I think I want to show that I persevere. This is incredibly statistically validated, incredibly well studied in designed assessment, so that you can say, no, really, this is personality. This is what it looks like. This is who I am at some core level. He also wanted to add general creativity. Little details matter. I'm always interested in how things are made and work. I'm a systematic thinker, straight to the point, and into more analysis, application of my understandings, and so on, a few more. So he got very, very clear about what he wanted to communicate. Now, if I asked Luca the first day we met, and talking about college essays, what do you want your essay to be about? What do you want to communicate? He might have said, I'm creative. I'm good at solving problems. People don't usually never have this level of depth and detail. That's the first milestone, is your intentions. The second milestone is a horribly written rough draft. This actually is not Luca's. I don't have this version of his, but it would look somewhat the same. And I know this is very small. He wrote, remember I said, 12 or 15 different blocks of raw content. And he reviewed them, he looked at them, he came up with his intentions, and then he played around and said, okay, which ones of these do I want to use? Which ones am actually going to, be in my essay? And he made some choices. And there was some mixing and matching going on. And he colored them, and he came up, did some activities, and basically came up with a draft that's like, okay, I can work with this. Now it's a little hard to see. That is that page. where did we go? Oh, there we go. And now I'm going to switch to the next screen. But this is basically the end of the storyteller phase. He has a rough draft. Again, terribly written, horrible version, incoherent in places, doesn't matter. Let me now switch to this. What in the world? So, right, I got very distracted with my hands getting all wobbly. And that totally threw me off. So he's going to also do his tone and reader experience. This is now the writer phase. And in the writer phase, that's like, okay, I have this horribly written version. How am I going to make it good? And it's not, I'm going to take this and then next week turn in the next version. And this version will be 50% better. That kind of thinking is based a little bit on handwriting essays or typing essays, which I haven't done since I think 11th grade. And then I got a computer and it was really amazing. Writing is really an iterative activity. When you have copy and paste and undo and version history and all these things that you can do in Google Docs or Word or whatever you're using, it's an iterative process. But it starts with getting clear about, having your tone. What do you want it to be like? What do you want it to sound like and feel like? And he thought, and he said, overall, I want it to be thoughtful and heartwarming, was his overall tone for his essay. And he also wanted it to be kind of funny, exciting, and quirky. And he had specific points in his essay where that shifted. I'm going to show you what that might look like. This is not Luca's essay. This is another student's essay. And he went through, he has his overall tone. And now I wrote this, and here's this horribly written essay with placeholders, invite the reader into the story, engage the reader, great opening, have smooth transitions, have, a fabulous ending. So really setting up the document so that you can really work with it. And it's thoughtful, big picture, starting slow and speeding up. Tone, slow down some, a little more expansive, peaceful, and loving. Now let's get some adventuresome, exciting, eye-opening, and some gratitude. And as a writer, you get to choose. Am I sharing this? I am not sharing that. Share screen. There we go. Tell me I hit record. I did hit record. I didn't. Okay. So here we go. So these invite into the story, these placeholders. As a writer, this is a great little trick. You can add these placeholders so that you know what's coming. And if someone is looking at your essay, they know it's going to be here. Because people say, well, you need a transition here. And you say, well, I know. See, there's a smooth one right here. Work on this brown content, work on the green content, then deal with the transition. You can say, add something about the puppy. No idea what that means. But again, you can say, oh, I'm going to add something, add some deep thoughts, add some dialogue, all sorts of things. And then the tone, just write the word tone, make a comment, adventuresome, exciting, eye-opening, and grateful, and where it shifts through the essay. Okay, so back to the slides. So now it's time to write the essay. And remember that that awful beginning, that red cherry red, Gene Bergstick, Debs, and all that, and wowza. I'm going to show you the first little bit of the essay, then I'll read the essay to you. Oh, Christine, maybe I missed calling this finding an essay as finding a mostly true story. Maybe I missed this, but calling this finding an essay as finding a mostly true story about who I am and who I want or don't want to be. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Christine. Can you either clarify that in the chat or, oh, I'm sorry, and that was a little while ago. I'm sorry I missed that. Or you can put your mic on and say what that is. I'm sorry I missed that. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep my eye on that until we get the answer. So in Luca's essay, remember there's that cherry red, awful language, utterly bewildering. It's cherry red and all mine. It's a 1970 VW Beetle. It's not practical, but it's me. My dinosaur of a car has a special type of comfort. My friends don't agree. They often regret getting in. Why is it so loud? Is it supposed to smell like gas? I don't want to die. All of this was in that awful content that I read. Pretty much all of it, except that it was a 1970 VW Beetle. So by starting out with that raw content, he did not know he was going to be writing about this car. I've been in this car. It is really terrifying. But he didn't know he was going to be writing about it. So there was no reason for him to make it well written until he actually said, you know what, this is how I'm going to start my essay. So I'm going to read Luca's essay for you, so you can hear the whole thing. And that is down here. It's cherry red, old, and all mine. It's a 1970 VW Beetle. It's not practical, but it's me. My dinosaur of a car is a special type of comfort. My friends don't agree. They often regret getting in. Why is it so loud? Is it supposed to smell like gas? I don't want to die. Their discomfort doesn't mean we won't have fun. My car opens up new conversations and deeper relationships. They're already overwhelmed with unfamiliarity. Any conversation won't change that. So why not have a good one? Along with sparking unique conversations, my car also breaks down. Keeping it on the road takes work. Every time I roll to an unplanned stop on the curb, I get the opportunity to sit back and think. I enjoy learning my car's components. I wish I had blueprints for the whole engine to get every part's purpose, down to the nuts and bolts. It's not just a mode of transportation to me. I love gripping the skinny steering wheel and feeling it shake. I don't have an RPM gauge. I have sound and feel. I have a pedal that communicates when to shift. I've always been intrigued by how things work. For my car, I like starting with a direct path into its mechanics, like when I followed the stray wire into the broken speedometer. If I'm blocking traffic, I skip the mindful approach and jump straight under the hood to get it running. I always have fun, even in a panic. As a kid, I enjoyed creating things. I spent hours building with Legos and days in the garage constructing pointless projects. I built jumps for my remote-controlled car and a makeshift forge built from the cheapest things I could get from Home Depot. These youthful constructions would often be interrupted by a bash on the head that turned into a physical battle between me and my older brother, Josh. He's 2 years older than me. Josh's strong desire for power and my annoying sugar-fueled energy spikes caused us to clash heads a lot. I have scars to prove it. I hated that we couldn't get along. I wanted us to have a good relationship. When I was in 7th grade, we figured out that we actually could kill each other. We started to understand one another. In any relationship, you have to know who that person is and how they see you, or at least guess. I know how Josh perceives my actions. If I'm watching TV, do I need to have the remote? Should I click my pen when doing homework? Can we be responsible for our relationship? We've worked to become friends. We love and understand each other. I started by building with Lego bricks, then with nails, and later with conversations. Every project has components with a purpose and a different way to fix a broken part. If my car is stuck in the middle of an intersection or I'm struggling for air while in a chokehold, then I have to dive into the problem. But I prefer to follow a wire and see where it leads. So again, can you hear let me go back to the slide with his intentions and his raw content. So love, humor, creativity, gratitude, curiosity, humility, self-regulation, teamwork, zest, honesty, creativity, systematic thinker, people are open. I know more about certain people than most. I want to engage in conversation. Like his intentions really came through because they were front and center, because he was so clear about what they were. That awful raw content, cherry red with black rubbish interior. that's in there. The windows, putting the stick down, smells like oil and gas, that's in there. So again, this raw content turned into that beautiful, beautiful essay. And the way really to read any essay and to assess to see if it really works is to go back to the secrets. Does he know his audience? Is Sad Jacob going to read that and think, boy, that's familiar, it's predictable, it's cliche? Well, a lot of people write about cars, and a lot of future engineers write about Legos. You'd be amazed at how many Lego essays there are. But the structure of this is not like any other essay. And he used the car and all of the engineering and his relationship with his brother because he didn't have anything that captured both the engineering, logical, mechanical side of him, which was absolutely critical, and how loving and caring and kind he is, and how much relationships really matter to him. And I actually have known him since he was 8. If you don't know both of those, you do not know Luca. So he had to find a way to blend those two stories together. Was it an engaging, authentic short story that shows who you are? I think so, and I think most people think so. It just like keeps you going, it grabs your attention, and it keeps it until the very end. And is he just a teenager telling a story to friends? Yeah, it's, again, beautifully written, but it's that perspective of just, let me tell you about my crazy car and my brother and my friends and all of these things. The next 3 secrets. Does he have stuff that happens? Yeah, my car broke down, or my brother was trying to kill me. In the moment experience, absolutely. The excitement, the fear, the contentment, the joy of just working on a project. Deep thoughts, all those things that he saw when he was writing the essay, that he did not know when he was 6 years old or 10 years old or 15 years old figuring out the car. So those are the big milestones. Let me get back to the present slides to this one. Okay, so Luca's fabulous car. This is the big picture. This is the big picture of the process. Know your audience, know your intention, know your role. You have to have that strong foundation. Get really clear about this. Again, if you didn't see College Essays 101 yet, in the follow-up email I send tomorrow, there'll be a link to that webinar and to an online version of both College Essays 101 and a lot of the activities that I'm sharing. And then first be a thinker, then a storyteller and a writer. Really be very intentional. What am I doing before I make any choices about what my message is or what I'm going to include? Come up with a bunch of ideas that I could write about, those story starters. Write a bunch of crap, write a ton of raw content, get the stuff out of your head and onto paper. Then take a look at it, then dive into it, see what you have to work with. Is there a message in there? Like, what do you want to communicate no matter what? How can you, which stories could you choose? Can you mix and match? Do you want to focus on one type of story or one event or one theme? Do you want to combine things that are very different? And then what kind of structure? How am I going to put it together? In what order? And putting in some placeholders and kind of getting ready to have that horribly written rough draft that you can work with. And then finally in the writer phase, okay, now you can deal with tone. Now you can deal with language and polishing, even if it's horribly written up until then. So I said that there would be a 7th secret, and I've been holding it to the very end. People have a lot of different perspectives on writing and feel differently about writing in this project of writing a college essay. And it's usually kind of high stakes for a lot of people. It's like, wow, this is the one thing that really matters. I got to get this right. Some people think, oh, you know what? I'm really good at English. I can just whip one out. Well, most people can't. I've seen it happen, but most people can't. But really, go at it in a systematic approach. Go at it like, this actually is an opportunity maybe to learn a little bit about yourself as you go through it. maybe an opportunity to become a better writer and build some skills and in a perspective in this broad framework. And again, with some of the activities I'll share tomorrow, you'll see some of that. But like I said, there's one more secret that I wanted to share, and that is have fun. You know, you might as well. You might as well. This doesn't mean there won't be times when it's hard. Writing is easy. Writing is really, really easy. That red cherry red, that's easy. Writing well is hard. Writing well takes work. Writing well takes being intentional and focused and playing and experimenting and ripping up what, you know, just getting rid of what you did, and that control Z, that undo, that making different versions, messing around until you have what really you want. It takes something, and you can make it a fun project. And fun is not always kind of just laughing and joking. If you look sometimes at little kids in the playground, they look very, very serious, but they're at play and they're experimenting and they're learning. So that's always my seventh secret, because you might as well. In one sense, I'm going to wrap up in just a minute. In one sense, I think that really, really, really the bottom line intention is, remember Sad Jacob, that really sad looking admissions officer? Doesn't make him happy. This make happy Jacob say, wow, thank you. It's not the same old essay. I actually learned something about you. I was engaged as I was reading it. And even though he may only have 3 minutes and he's reading really, really fast, just a little bit of, you know, breath of fresh air. And an essay really can make a difference for these folks sometimes. Not often, but when it does, boy, it's pretty special. Just about done. I'm going to stick around after I stop the recording for any Q&A. But at the very beginning, I asked you, you know, what you wanted to learn, what you were concerned about, anything like that. Just think for a moment and feel free to put that in the chat. Like, what have you discovered in this workshop, in this webinar? What surprised you, and what are you curious about now? Just kind of think about that and let that kind of learning sink in, or the what comes next sink in. One very last thing, like I said, the 7 Secrets for a Great College Essay webinar, I led that last week, and I will send out the link for the recording for that. With that, it is now 5:57. Again, I just put the camera on, and my 10-fingered hands and I, thank you for being here. I will figure out what is going on with big marker on that one. And have a great evening. Like I said, I'm going to stop the recording. Stick around for Q&A. And if you have any questions later, feel free to get in touch. Thank you.